Welcome back to the Make It Your Business podcast. This is episode 2 of this series in which we're talking about AI within, well, last episode it was about movie production and about the film industry, which Duncan was really pragmatic on. And we're just transitioning now, how that affects business owners and really about how AI is going to affect your content. So, Duncan, obviously, AI is brilliant for your content production. You don't need anybody to help you with your media anymore. You just need an AI agent.
Yeah. Look, how to approach this? AI. Look, we use AI. We do use AI. So I'm not a Luddite. I don't. I'm not for a second suggesting it's not a useful thing. Nor am I falling into that cliched camp of saying it's a tool like any other, because it isn't.
I've definitely said that. So
well, okay, but it's. I know that's been the kind of go-to thing to say about it, but it's not. It's very disruptive, but it's great in terms of I as a sounding board. I use it a lot as sort of to consolidate ideas. For today, I sent you a voice note, for example, the other day, going, James has said these ideas, and they were all sort of my usual stream of babbling consciousness, and I just took that voice note, took it off WhatsApp, put it into Gemini, and Gemini went, yeah, all right, here you go, some summaries to try this. And I went, all right, yeah, can we refine it? Yeah. So it's really good for that and really good for sort of passing information and being a sort of sounding board for your ideas and being able to sort of articulate them better for you, that sort of thing. On the planning side, an example of using it in video production for a client that I've then used myself a few times is in eye correction. So I had a podcast that I produced for a client called The 6 Minute Partner, and we're different ends of the country, and we met in London, and it was all very narrow timing. And I hired a studio who overpromised and underdelivered, basically, to put it that way. But we ended up having to shoot with a monitor just off camera for him to read off of instead of a teleprompter, which should go in front of them. Then, so of course, his eye line was there, and he's reading the whole thing, and it looked terrible. So there's many tools like this. I used one called Veed.io that has a eye correction tool. You upload your video, you click eye correction, and it literally goes, and like the eyes straight down the barrel, absolutely flawless. Cool. And so, stuff like that. It's all part of the democratizing of it. So if you wanted to do video content and you couldn't learn the video, or you wanted to be able to be really reactive or whatever, you put your screen next to your phone or whatever you're going to do it on it, and you read it, and then just hit the eye correction, and it'll bring it straight into the lens. Wow. Stuff like that is really. I don't think it's great for editing yet. I know it can do cut downs and stuff, but they're always bonky.
Yeah, I don't like any cut downs. I always feel it doesn't really truly get the pieces I want, and
it cuts off like mid thought, and
so it doesn't really understand where the messaging is coming from. It just sort of goes more probably tries to go with the rhythm and the breaks of a script rather than actually understanding what you're saying.
I'm pretty sure what it will do is it will transcribe and then analyze the text. So bearing in mind if the transcription is wrong, which does happen because obviously voice transcription isn't perfect. You see that with people's captions, right? Because there'll be weird words in the captions that are right, okay, because it kind of sounds like that.
Well, that's same on the captions that I do. So I use CapCut for my videos, and I always go in. I use the auto-captions, but then I go and manually edit them, and I edit every sort of 10th word for some reason, or delete an and I always think when I see other videos and they've not had that done, I downgrade them a bit in my mind because I think it's a bit, but I don't know how much other people look at that stuff. That might just be me, but I do pay attention to that, the quality of that type of thing.
It depends what it's for. I think if people are just trying to content dump.
I mean, some of the videos as well that I'm probably looking at have had millions of views, so they've obviously done fine.
If views are all you care about, that's fair. But I think if what you're trying to do is speak to a client or potential clients or target certain people, would you buy from someone whose captions were riddled with typos?
Well, exactly, especially if it's talking about financial products and that sort of thing. I guess that's the other thing that I imagine will happen is the AI content will get downgraded, and real human content should, in theory, rise to the top as time goes on, because the platforms, YouTube will know what is a fully AI generated video and what is an organic.
It should do, and I think there will be steps to, because there's already a thing where you're supposed to declare it, but I mean, that's up to you, isn't it? But I have spoken to, I've got a very good friend who works in PR, and he said there's the thing that's already out there, but that is going to really take over like SEO and everything is, well, God, what did he call it? Something IO. Basically, it's, you see it then, right? Like Gemini's integrated into Google search. So when you do a Google search, you get an AI summary of it at the top, right? And more that's going to happen, and people are going to ask AI to find the best whatever. So a lot of this is going to shift to what AI thinks is the best option for people, not what, the rules of SEO are just going to break down. And in a way, I actually think that's a good thing, because the gaming of that system went full circle, right? There was a time where you could just bung keywords into something.
Yeah, white text.
Yeah,
so you just put all the keywords in white text at the bottom of your website.
That was very early doors. That kind of died a death quite quickly, because obviously people got wise to that, and then the algorithms got more sophisticated and could kind of see. And then it was backlinking and all that, and domain authority and that kind of stuff. Whereas now that sort of stuff will be a component, but a lot of it will be AI looking at the relevance of what
I get inquiries from ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And I then went, and think I've mentioned this before, I went and asked ChatGPT why I was getting inquiries, because I'm relatively small fish in against my competitors who are paying for all sorts, and they've got big marketing teams working on their SEO.
Mm-hmm.
And it said it was the human sounding language that I was using on the content I was doing. Well, so that's picking up stuff. So it's not just picking up quantity there; it is finding uniqueness.
So there are companies out there now that have set up to optimize people's pages for that. I do think, again, that's going to become a thing where you're going to, it's a law of diminishing returns. I think the more people that do that, the less value it will have, and therefore blah, blah, blah. So but what a lot of people said is the ultimate upside of this is that merely creating high value content is the way to win the game, over time. It comes back to what it always should have been, which is, yes, build an audience, a genuine audience. Don't try and game the system. Don't try and flood the internet with rubbish. Like, just put out high quality, high value content, and it starts to move quicker than, look, yeah, it's a good year to 18 months. It can happen quicker, it being, to
organic. See the results.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as AI is concerned, to bring it back round to actually the content creation then, obviously we talked about the movies and it being sort of novelty, and you didn't feel it was going to be too disruptive with regards to the front end, but might help with some of the workflows.
Yes.
And also some of the maybe streaming services that just need to throw out a load of old tosh just for people to sit at while they're on the phone. Not so
streaming services, but I think if you will do it, you will sit there and go, oh, I want to watch a, whatever, dinosaur. And
so as far as sort of a business owner looking to create some video content, obviously this is your world.
Yes.
What would, and as honest as you can be, what would you say they can use AI for, and where would you really say you need to steer clear from that, because this needs a human story and this needs that human touch?
Here's an example, because I did it, right? So this is not me using a stick to beat AI or anything like that. I did this. I was strategizing with Gemini about new products, how to consolidate, what's of value to founder-led businesses, how can we position ourselves in such a way with a low-ticket item to kind of... And it came up with this sort of content resurrection idea about, target people who've got lots of content on, like long form content on YouTube, like keynote speeches and stuff that they've had filmed, they've stuck on their YouTube channel, it's gone nowhere, and they've gone, oh well, and these are the kind of people you want to find something that's maybe 2-3 years old then they don't really do content, and just target them and say, look, I can take that video, I can repurpose it, not just make cut downs, but add lots of different editing tricks to really highlight your authority in that space, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, sorry, I'm going off topic, but I was using it to, strategize on that. And then I said, okay, right, I need to make a promotional video for this, right? So it goes, okay, here's how, and it obviously went off on this thing about like, you walk into a graveyard and you're talking, and here's the script, and it's all about like, people leave their archives haunt them because it's blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and then a zombie hand comes out of the grave and it turns into like this with a phone in its hand and old footage that you then turn into. And I was going, whoa, I haven't got a graveyard to go through. And he went, no, do this. Like you could, and it said, have you got like? I said, I've got Adobe, and it went, okay, fine. Go in Photoshop. Put this prompt into, because Photoshop now has a generative AI function. Put this into that, and then but also bearing in mind I am a filmmaker, so I went, okay, so create a background plate. I then Premiere, which is my editing tool, now has essentially an auto-roto thing. So in other words, you don't need a green screen necessarily to cut yourself out of a background and put yourself on something else. So I lit it. I color timed it as well to sort of match the back. I made myself very blue and dark. And
we'll put a video. I shall put a copy on this.
Yes, I shall put it on this. I mean, it's vertical, so you'll have 2 bars on the side. But and I found that on the stock site that I pay for, there was a zombie hand on a green screen coming out of the earth. I then got a phone. I put the phone on it with a green screen that I then overlaid. So I had to do a lot of traditional film, like VFX work, and I put smoke across it all to kind of hide a lot of the joint. So
you saw 75% AI idea, and then
conception.
50%. As far as the production, 50% AI, 50% you, and
I don't know how much AI is involved in the object selection sort of rotoscope thing. I suspect some. So there's some there, and then the background plate was, and I made a gravestone using it. But then I did the rest. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the video production, maybe 20-30%, because bear in mind I then had, I put my mic on, I did the performance, and then I did all the editing and everything. So and I think that's the great thing about it, is that it's not a cheat. That didn't feel to me like a cheap, lazy, inauthentic thing to do.
You wouldn't have been able to do that a few years ago, really, would you?
You could have, with the way
with those tools wouldn't have been able.
You couldn't have customized it in that way. I could have probably gone on. I use Envato, which is a stock site, which now has a generative thing built into it as well, which isn't very good. But you can go on. I could go on there and find like a picture of a graveyard, use that as a background plate. I'd have probably had to cut out a gravestone from it.
And but if a client had come to you to produce that video, that would have taken you a lot longer. It would have been a bigger cost to them. Whereas somebody came to you and said they wanted to do a similar thing now, the cost to them is going to be a lot lower. They might not be able to do some of the things still that you've just mentioned, but you'll be able to kind of get that all set up for them a lot quicker and a lot cheaper. I could
shoot that with them on an iPhone or just on a blank wall. Yeah. As long as it's lit semi well, you can. The tool can basically cut you out, because obviously traditionally you use green screen, and I still think green screen is. I did something that was a hybrid of this recently for a client, and we used green screen, but quite often with green screen, what you'll find is the key, which is where you take away the green, can cause other problems with it. So if there's any of that pigment on you, that's why you have to really light it carefully so you don't get reflection.
You have to be completely naked.
You start, you start losing bits of your arm, and then you have to fiddle with that, and it can be the results aren't always perfect. Whereas when you've then got the option of adding a rotoscope as well, because rotoscoping used to be frame by frame cutting out, and it's a laborious process. Whereas now, and After Effects used to have a halfway house with it. Now you've got this thing which is essentially made it very easy to cut someone out, as long as there's a real clear differentiation. That's why I wore like dark clothes and did it against a light background so that it wouldn't have trouble. But yeah, it's and like I say, that's only a good thing, because it means it's certainly with content you can have much higher production values, and you can have much more creative ideas that you can then put out there. But it's not, bearing in mind a lot of this I understood because I It moves
Well,
on.
it's a bit the same thing with if you then, and I know we're talking about kind of media here, but just to very briefly touch on writing blogs and doing SEO content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, similar thing. You can then use that idea and put it into worded format. But if you don't add that human element to it, that's just gonna sink. You need to still put your flavor in there and combine that with the strategies that might be in place, such as picking the right keywords and the right topics and keeping the sentences short and whatever things you need to do.
But
to
using
make
the
sure
passive
it's effective.
voice,
Yeah.
and also the cliched way that AI writes, because it doesn't write. It does there's always 3 points of something, and something.
Well,
and it's
Well, again, kind of on a bit of a tangent here. It's a bit like receiving. I can pick out AI written emails to me now, and they're a real turn off, especially if there's American spellings or the little dash marks and things like that. But even more so when clients would normally go cover something quite quickly, but they're going chapter and verse and all this detail. And I'm thinking, you just wouldn't have written that. And actually, they're diluting any sort of relationship you're building, because they're just sending and putting it in, and it's quite offensive almost. And not offensive is a bit extreme, but I hate receiving those emails, knowing that this is just purely being put into a chatbot and
it's cynical and condescending, and it feels like
I'm not talking to that person.
No,
like, really, I'm not. And I've got every mind to just reply with my AI, and we'll just let our
then there'll be avatars. I know. I agree, and I wrote a LinkedIn newsletter recently on AI, and I thought I cannot not write this. So I wrote from scratch wrote the whole thing, because I was like, I'm not, and it's a process I actually quite enjoy, but it's nice to do it on something I actually want to write about. Because in the past I've done it for clients, and I've ghostwritten for clients, and I've done that in Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine, and and I used to do it all the time. And of course now everyone expects AI to do it. I think the thing for AI blogging is to just mix that, make sure if there's ever anything that's really your area of expertise, write it.
Yeah, it's good for research though. If you, I was talking about bootstrapping a business, and I was like, I want to find somebody that resonates with the idea I've got.
Yes.
So it went out, and it was actually it didn't do. This is a bad example. It went out and found the founder of Gymshark. And I was like, I didn't really feel that actually it did resonate. But essentially the point I'm making is that I sort of had this idea, and I said, go and find me a business owner where this has worked. Yeah. And then it came back with
You've got to be careful with citations with it though, because for example, this afternoon was PMQs and I was sort of half listening to the radio, and Kemi Badenoch said something about, what did she call them? Something hawks and ghouls or whatever. She said some weird pejorative term for all the backbenchers or whatever, and on the radio they put it into Gemini or something to say, what is that an expression that's used, whatever, and it came back and said, yes, this expression was used by the Conservative leader in PMQ, and in real I'd obviously gone on and said it was used by the leader of the opposition, Rishi Sunak, used it in Prime Minister's questions, and it was like, right, so it doesn't, you've got to be really careful.
Yeah, definitely don't hit send on a subject you don't know. You've got to audit this stuff.
Yeah.
So before we finish off, let's just go back to media.
Yeah.
So we said where it can work, but I'm guessing, and obviously you've done some much more like long form content strategies where you've gone in, understood the business, done long form video, and I guess that is really where AI is diminished, because you just you can't. I mean, I'm answering the question for you here, but
you're not wrong.
Where or does it play a role at all in that in some of the other projects? Had you had the ability to use it at the time in those longer form stuff?
I think it has. Look, it has its place in certain things, like the all the below the line stuff of like risk assessments, call sheets, the admin-y workflow-y stuff. It has a really good, it plays a really key role in terms of creativity and strategizing on that front. Yeah, it can throw up some really good ideas if you see it as that. I think the thing that people,
can you get an AI actor yet? Can you
they've
sort
got
of say,
them,
yeah? Could you sort of say, I'm doing this shoot in Wales. and I want a Welsh-sounding 45-year-old male to read this script while he's on top of a motorcycle spinning some plates.
There's a really great film director who started putting out a lot of content. I can't remember his name, and I should have come with it. He started doing a thing where he'll go, he's taken these AI actors and said, right, I'm going to try and direct them in a commercial. He did one with like a dishwasher, right? It's a dishwasher commercial. And he was like, okay, here's the dialogue. And he said the dialogue, and he goes, now I want you to say that, and as you're loading the dishwasher. And the AI was like, it put the male voice in the female actor's mouth. He was stacking the dishwasher weird, like it didn't understand what a dishwasher was because it was sort of floating in midair, and it was putting dishes in upside down.
It wasn't rinsing them before they went in.
Well, it wasn't. It just didn't know. It was sort of. It didn't know how to say the dialogue and why that was relevant to a human. You know, all those things. There was another one. He did another one with that. What's the famous Tilly something? There is a famous AI actor that they've tried to make. You know, really famous. But again. Okay, and he tried to direct her in a scene. He tried to audition her for something. He said, right, okay, I'm going to do this scene. I want you to do that. And it was just it was so performative. It was just bad acting. It was, I'm upset with you. And I started crying, and it's like, right, that's not, can you try and let's have a bit more subtlety, like, because you're saying those words, but you're feeling this. And so you need to understand that humans don't just emote whatever they're thinking, you know. So it was very, superfluous and didn't get it, and like even when you tried to direct it with nuance and understanding, it just couldn't figure that out. And as I say, it comes back to empathy. It doesn't know, it can't empathize with the human. It doesn't know what that is. It can only imitate what it sees. So yes, in answer to your question, you could do that, but it would be, you know, the cracks would start to show, you know, the uncanny valley, that thing in your brain that knows. I wrote this in my newsletter, available now on LinkedIn, if you should. In which I posited that the uncanny valley is very much a sort of part of our subconscious. And do you know what the uncanny valley is?
No.
So it's the thing that people talk about. It was always brought up in terms of bad CGI usually in the late 90s, early 2000s. I'm thinking the Matrix sequels. I'm thinking the famous one is The Rock in the Scorpion, you know, the Mummy spin-off thing, where he suddenly turned into the CG, and it was so obviously CG. And photorealism has come a long way, but even still, when you've got face replacement and stuff, it's something that doesn't quite. And the closer it gets, the more we're repulsed by it. We're you know, like so that's the uncanny valley. It's the part of your brain that knows something isn't real or human, more to the point. And I think that is a defense mechanism. I think it's part of it, because when something's obviously fake, you're not worried by it.
When you feel like I'm being tricked.
Exactly. So I think it's much, but it probably stems from, like, in nature, you know, like camouflaged predators. When something looks too much like something, you know, I think we're designed to be wary of it, because it's trying to deceive us. Yeah. And I think when you see, you know, even AI, even when it's photorealistic, you know, you go, there's something about this I don't know. And again, why would you want to instill that in your audience, especially if you're trying to sell them something? Why would you want to provoke a reaction like that?
When you want to build trust.
When you want to build trust.
There we go.
Is that a good note to land on?
I think it's a perfect note to land on.
There you go.
Well, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully that's shed some light on this topic, and we'll catch you on the next one.